Well, the year continues to roll on. We're into fall already, and Kathy Prokop comes by and talks to us once a month about the happenings in Twinsburg, and September is no different. Thanks for coming by.
Happy to be here.
Good to have you. We're going to talk about a lot of different things going on, and this is some good news as far as the people hoping their town is safe. You were able to hire a couple of new police officers recently, so can you tell us about that process?
Well, we're very happy to have brought on board Officer Nicole Bod, and Nicole is a full-time officer. And she has been doing an awesome job already, so we're really delighted to have a female officer in particular. That's nice to be able to have some additional diversity in the department. And we also have a new part-time officer, Gary Ennis.
Who came from Macedonia originally when he retired.
Yes.
Now, does this bring you, number-wise, does this bring you to the threshold you want to be at, or are you still...
Actually, yes, right now, but we are going to have a few retirements coming up this year. And so there's going to be some upward progression going on, and therefore we'll be hiring some additional part-time officers later in the year, or probably beginning of next year.
And for people to hear that and they know people are interested, is this done through the Civil Service Commission, or how does the process go for when you go out and actively look for a patrol?
Well, we actually go through our HR department.
Okay.
And there's a series of testing that you have to complete, and then after that, everything is authorized and officiated by the Civil Service Commission. But first, you'll have to go through the testing, the interview process, the background checks.
Does that include physical? I mean, do they have to do
There's physical agility,
yes.
And that's done at Tri-C. So there's a few things that need to be accomplished before you get to the civil service.
How many do you foresee losing to retirement? Do you have any idea?
There's a possibility within maybe from now till the first quarter of next year, 2 to 3, probably 3.
Which is quite a bit, right?
It is. It really is quite a bit.
And as far as ranks in the fire department, how do you sit there? I've only talked about the last 2 mayors we're in. We talked a lot about safety forces.
Right.
So I guess that's why I'm on this tangent.
Well, kind of the same thing. We'll be looking for potentially a assistant chief. We're discussing that as we are with the police department. And if those positions open up, again, that's going to move everybody, not everybody, but there'll be a few upward opportunities for advancement. And then we'll be looking at a firefighter position, possibly another position.
Okay, so there is...
So there's a few changes going on within both departments.
But you have continued growth, so this is something that kind of goes hand in hand.
Definitely.
Okay. Let's stay with the fire department just for a minute, because I had read, and this is some not complicated, but it's extensive equipment along the lines of Jaws of Life, I believe, or even beyond that, of $48,000 that they were able to obtain. Is that correct?
This is for extrication equipment, and I believe that there'll be some additional training that's required by our personnel in the fire department, so they'll be receiving that. It's already out and being used, so we're delighted that we can provide those kinds of things.
Is Chief Racine happy with the, and for lack of a better term, state-of-the-art equipment that Twinsburg, is he on the cutting edge as far as staying on top of making sure that you do have the best available equipment? I believe that
we are. Whenever I talk to personnel in other fire departments, they're always pretty, I hate to say envious, but they're definitely believe that Twinsburg is outfitted well and treated well, so I'm proud of that, and I know our department's proud of that. And again, the reason is it all comes down to our residents deserve the best safety that we can provide.
And the other nice thing is they don't rely on the general fund to do this. There's always an active push for grants and that sort of thing for for vests and for the police, that sort of thing.
Radios.
Right. There's always somebody out there sniffing around for grant money to be able to get this and not come out of your budget.
It makes a tremendous difference when we're able to get some grant money. I believe that it seems like there's more grant opportunity in the police department than the fire department, but nevertheless, if something's out there, we're going after it.
That's good. All right, let's shift gears. This was something you and I have talked about forever, and fortunately it's come to, I believe, an end. And I don't like the word lawsuit. The confrontation back and forth with MSRK, what it boils down to is the Corbett Farm property. Right. So that has finally been settled completely, and they can move ahead. Where are we with that as far as them coming in and starting to physically build something, and when will people see something different on that corner that used to house Corbett?
Well, we finally reached a settlement agreement. As you know,
and it was a compromise.
And it was. Well, to a certain extent it was because of the variances involved, but they wanted to build somewhere between 240 and 300 homes. And the zoning for that property limited them to 96 homes. And after a 6-year back and forth lawsuit negotiation period, we ended up coming to a compromise with them. They will be building 95 homes. We will be giving a few variances on the properties so that we could arrive at this settlement agreement. But 95 homes, so we're pleased that we upheld our zoning code. It took a long battle, but we did it. And they will be starting the phase 1, 37 homes in phase 1. That will begin earth moving. You'll probably see it sometime in October, and by spring, I think that they'll be ready to sell some lots. Yes.
Will that be different communities within that area, or will it be part 1 and then we'll add on to?
It'll just be a series of phases. I think I recall that there's 3 phases in that. Pulte will be the developer in it.
You know what? It sounds weird though, but in a bizarre way, had this not been under lawsuit and they went through this, say, in 2008, who knows if they could have sold anything back then with all the problems that were going on with the economy in itself. They seem to be, although it took them this long, they certainly have much more attractive buying population out there in this day and age than they would have had they been able to.
I agree totally with you. And as you know, the properties in Twinsburg turn around very quickly.
Yeah.
So this is a great opportunity for them. And I believe that it'll be done properly now. It took a long time, but it'll be done properly.
Okay. You are the safety director, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's part of being the mayor, and I've learned that along the way. Should anyone be concerned, I know there's been recent articles about the overtime involved with the fire department, and immediately for someone who doesn't want to dig a little bit, they picture the problem that Cleveland had with people living in California and people clocking in and out and the overtime. You're at an overtime high that you haven't normally seen at this time. After talking to your chief and et cetera, does it concern you, or what are the reasons why they seem to have an exorbitant amount of overtime?
Well, I can guarantee you that we don't have any of the problems that they've had in some of the larger cities. That absolutely is not going on here. We have had high overtime this year, but it is due to injury in the department. We had some injuries. We had an operation. We had people out sick. So it has taken a lot of overtime to fill those shifts, which we have done. And, it all comes down to safety first. And if we have to pay the overtime to make sure that we're staffed appropriately, that we meet our minimum manning of 6 per shift, then that's what we need to do, and that's what we do. Do
you not run into the issue of, with X amount of officers, you went right through the vacation season, which is a time where they're on vacation, you got to have someone to fill in that time, and if a few of them are on vacation, then you run into this overtime issue.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, there's Kelly days, there's all kinds of reasons that we have to fill shifts. So it takes a lot of maneuvering as far as personnel and the budget, but again, the bottom line is we provide the safety and make sure that we don't have any abuses in the department at the same time.
And I'm sure you have checks and balances on that anyhow.
Definitely.
So. And the other, I was very impressed to hear Chief say, we have an experienced force. When they get older, you're going to run into more of these pull the back thing, that kind of thing. So, I mean, you trade experience that they're getting up, but this is why you have retirements coming and that sort of thing also.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So it's nothing they should be worried about. And where does the overtime money, does it come from the general fund, or how do you work this?
It comes from the general fund, and they always build some overtime into their budgets for salaries. But this year, obviously, it went beyond that. And, we have to flex with whatever's going on in the department.
And without getting specific numbers, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. The city is very comfortable in their carryover or their rainy day funds, so if you need an emergency like this where you have to come up with $30,000 or whatever the chief needs, you're able to do that.
Definitely.
Is the city comfortable with its reserve, and is it too much reserve? How do you differentiate what's too much reserves versus that we need it for things like overtime in the fire department, et cetera?
We are in a very comfortable position right now, and we're very proud of that. We worked very hard to get there. As you know, we replaced, we had to reduce or increase our income tax from 2 to 2.25%. We did that a few years ago, and the reason the word reduce is stuck in my head because November it will be going back to the ballot for a reduction. And so during that time period, we were very, very cognizant of how we spent our money, made sure that if we were able to do without personnel, if somebody left, that they weren't replaced. Or we've gone through to a lot of part-time positions.
We did increase the number of employees in the whole city.
No, in fact, we reduced by about 20. We've gone to cost-saving measures. So we want to be in a different position this time if one of our employees, our larger employees, should happen to leave. That was quite a hit, $2.4 million all at once when Chrysler left. So some of the things that we look at now is we want to make sure that we have enough in reserve to cover our debt. So at least $12 million in reserve to cover debt. Also, I believe that you need to have 5 to 6 months of operational reserves. So when you add that together, you're looking
so are you
between
floating around $20 million? Is
$20 to $30 million in carryover is what I believe that we should have in our general fund to make sure that we're safe and secure.
So the naysayers and the financial experts out there that think that you have too much reserves, it's not something you'd be comfortable with shaving some of that figure down, correct?
I really hope that we don't have to. We're living in a different kind of economy than we did years ago. And, you know, as we saw in 9/11, how our economy flipped overnight, and then again with Chrysler leaving. And I really think that we need better preparation than we had years ago. We need a higher reserve amount. You know, again, the debt, being able to survive for a certain time period with lower income.
Well, and you've really had to pay attention, too, as far as an administration to health costs and the fact that that goes through the roof.
Going up.
And, you know, you have all your different unions. You can't just assume this is easy to figure out. You really do have to plan the forecast down the road for that.
Further down the road, for sure. And, you know, one of the things that we're there to do, a city, is to provide services for our residents. So if we want to do all of these other things and to continue to provide the level of services that we have been providing, we have to be very careful with those dollars.
And they get used to them. I mean, when
absolutely.
When you're used to great service and suddenly something gets cut, garbage, pick up anything, boy, it hits the fan, let's put it that way.
And we have had to increase some of our fees, such as our senior snow plowing. At one time, we plowed about 100 driveways a year.
Yeah.
And now we plow 348 driveways every year for our seniors. That takes a lot more personnel, a lot more equipment to be out there.
Overtime again.
Overtime. A lot of that is done on overtime because it snows on the weekends, at night. So that program is a big, big cost. And we increased our fee from $30 a year to $50 a year for senior snow plowing. And
which I can tell you, it's $200 for me for a season.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're getting a great deal.
It is a good deal. And really, honestly, almost every senior I talk to understands, and they're very appreciative. But there are a few residents that we have heard from that aren't happy about that $20 increase in the fees.
But on the flip side, you don't have to offer that.
Well,
correct?
that's true. We're fortunate that we're one of the cities that we can still offer that kind of service.
But those are all things that you have to consider when people want to cut the reserve.
Well, the other thing that happened with that program this year, though, is that we used to offer it to any resident, and now we do not offer it to residents who make over $60,000.
Okay.
So if you're a senior citizen and you're making over $60,000,
you're not going to get that either.
That service is no longer available.
Right.
If you make under $32,000, it's free, but between $32,000 and $60,000, it's $50.
Okay, I think that's pretty
I
fair.
think it's very fair.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now, one of the ways to keep the reserve high and keep the money coming in is doing something, and this has been on the forecast for you guys for a while now, is the actual square area. And I know you've taken this one step further now. Before there was just a lot of talk, but now you have the Community Improvement Corporation. So explain what that is, who's on it, and what the goals are of that group.
Well, this is a nonprofit organization. Some cities call it a CDC, Community Development Corporation. We call it Community Improvement Corporation.
Okay.
They're the same structure. And our finance director is a member, Larry Finch, who's our economic development director, our law director, David Maestros, myself. We have 3 council members, Ted Yates, Bill Fury, and Sam Scafidi. A representative from the schools, and 2 business people. We have Roger Green from the Hilton Garden Inn, and Anne-Marie Hagenboo and from First Merit Bank. So we have formed this corporation, nonprofit corporation, to help with redevelopment of the square area. If there's one area in our city that needs some attention, it is definitely around the square. And as you know, we received a grant for a walkability assessment of square area, and they didn't really need to tell us, but we knew it. We're not very walkable, we're not very pedestrian friendly, we're certainly not a destination.
Yeah.
So these are all the things that we're trying to transform the center of town into being. And we're looking at the different quadrants, the northeast quadrant of the square, the southeast quadrant. We've been purchasing properties along Ravenna Road so that at some point we can have some cohesive redevelopment, which would include some new roadways so that we relieve the congestion at 82 and 91. We're talking about sidewalks, hiking trails, and to transform the entire center of the city of Twinsburg. And that's what this Community Improvement Corporation is charged with doing.
Again, it's so bizarre, though, because, again, the square is Twinsburg Township, and this is so odd how this is all. Now, will they be invited to any of these talks, or do you keep them apprised as to what this group comes up with?
Well, we'll keep them apprised, but none of, if something came up that would affect that property, obviously they would be immediately
But you probably
contacted.
won't touch the,
But
quote, square.
We don't have any intention of touching the square, the grassy area, which is owned by the township.
Okay. Now, am I correct in when you said properties along Ravenna Road, I didn't even realize there was a trailer park or something alongside of where the old library used to be, which is the Sharon School of Dance, or Richter Court, I think is the road. Is that a piece of this where we're trying to clean up? Let's start from somewhere. Can you tell us what happened
Well,
there?
Richter Court is a connector road between Ravenna Road and State Route 91.
Okay.
And located there, we had a trailer park, approximately 11 trailers.
I never knew that.
Been there as long as I can remember, and I've lived in the city since 1977, so it's been there a long time. And unfortunately, it was getting to the point where it really was a blighted area in the city. So we were able to negotiate with the property owner that the city would purchase the trailer park, and we did. And all of those trailers, the residents were told that they would have to move. The trailer park has been closed down, and the trailers have been removed.
Okay. Now, the person that owned it still lives there, though, but she doesn't live in a trailer.
No, the person who owns it lives in a corner house, and we split the property off. So she now owns a portion of what was a larger piece of property, and we own the portion where the tractor.
But again, this is like a beginning phase of looking into that whole grand picture.
Right, and I know it took a long time for us to accomplish this. We've been getting complaints to do something with that area for a long, long time. But as in everything in government, it goes very slowly, but we've been working through the whole process and finally have that piece accomplished. But yes, we're trying to assemble property, and we're trying to revitalize the square area.
Okay. Let's take our break. We'll come back and talk a little bit about the old school, because that seems to be on everyone's mind, or a lot of certain people's mind, and then we'll finish things out. So stay with us. Back with Mayor Prokop from the city of Twinsburg, and before we get into this old school action here, talk about, I think this past weekend was the 5K run that is raising money for the traveling exhibit to come here in 2015? Okay. I heard it was a big success.
It was. It took place on Saturday, September 14th, and we had approximately 130, somewhere around there, walkers and runners. The majority of them were runners, I think about 100 runners. And it was an amazing event. I have to thank Adele Nykaza, Angel Keefe, and Shannon Collins for the tremendous work that they did working with the VFW and getting this project up and running. Our service department, fire department, and police department and Parks and Rec were great support services. So it was a real team effort, but it was well worth it because they raised over $5,000 to put towards bringing the traveling tribute.
And to refresh everybody's memory, the money's already there as far as bringing it here. It's raising the money now to actually put it on, I guess, so to speak.
Exactly.
So this money went towards that, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Well, Angel's on top of it because I got to thank you today. We're a bronze sponsor, so she's pretty good at getting the word out right after it happened.
They are a tremendous team, so we're very happy to have them on board because if there's anybody that's going to get it done, it's these.
And they will have it next year. She's already mentioned
Yes.
that. So there is other fundraising opportunities between now and when it actually gets here, so you should stay.
There's going to be a couple things. We're going to have a wine tasting, a celebrity bartender night, and the VFW will be having some fundraisers. There's a long way to go. We already have the $15,000 to bring the tribute to the city. That was courtesy of Twinsburg Township, Reminderville, and the city of Twinsburg. But now, as you said, we have to raise probably another
15,
another
yeah.
50.
Oh, 50? Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, another 40 to 50,000 to be able to do it right.
Yeah.
Provide landscaping and porta potties and security. And
The nice thing is, though, your window is out far enough that you can do these events a year and a half, 2 years ahead of time before it comes, so that's good.
And I think next year, we had a lot of publicity on TV and on the radio, so I think next year when we do this, we'll probably double the size of the event.
Good. All right, let's get into this old school. And let me start this with, no, the city had nothing on the docket to go in there and tear down the old school. There's no time frame on this, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Well, you asked the Architectural Review Board, I guess there needs to be something that's approved by them for the city to have the permission to tear it down. And that was not granted. In fact, I think it went down 4-1 or 5-1, whatever it is there. Does that surprise you that it's not often that you hear a little board that's, volunteers for the city wouldn't agree with what the administration, council people, et cetera, would want to do? Is that rare, do you think?
I think it's, that's
I don't remember that
happening.
Okay.
It is a little bit rare. This has been an ongoing issue for people in city administration probably the last 6 or 7 years. We were aware that Kent State would be building a new building and moving out of that old school.
Right.
So we have been assessing that property for years and years, and that's why we did a feasibility study for museums and shops and things like that to go in the building. We looked at putting an incubator, a business incubator in there. We talked about that many times. And then we also had a feasibility study on how much it would cost to renovate the building, and again, $4 to $8 million. So we've been doing our due diligence over the years to figure out what we can do with this property. We really have come to the conclusion that it's just way too expensive to renovate the building. If you went in there and saw it with your own eyes, you would understand why. There's original plumbing and electrical, and the building, the new section and the old section is offset by just about a half a story, and it's just a really cumbersome building to deal with. So yes, we applied to the Architectural Review Board for a certificate of appropriateness for them to say, yes, it would be appropriate when you're ready to demo the building. And that was the first step, what we had to do. And the ARB came back after their meeting in September and deemed that the building was historic. Now, to be a historic building in town, to be considered to be a historic building, you have to be over 50 years old.
Yeah, I think that
I qualify. So anyway, the building has to be over 50 years old. And then there's 4 other pieces of criteria that it's supposed to meet. The process now that they said it's a historic building, they have to justify that and put it in writing and present that to the administration and to council why they believe that it's a historic building.
And do they have to receive any kind of distinction? I'm thinking of Longwood Manor and that sort of thing. Do they have to get something from a bigger group, outside group?
No,
like the Historical Society will do a car that's, a 60 GTO or something.
That would be something listed on the National Historic Register.
They're not eligible for that?
I don't believe that this building would ever be. I think it would be a struggle to prove that it's a historic building.
Gotcha.
It has to be an architect of note who designed the building.
Yeah.
It would have to be somebody famous, such as a president or somebody who attended.
Is this a sentimental thing for the people that have lived here for a long time, don't want it torn down because it's been here forever?
From my perspective, I believe that and I know it's an emotional issue for many residents, and I understand that. I've been in the city since 1977, and struggled with it myself for several years, and that's why we did so many studies and feasibility studies to see if there was another use for the building. And I am convinced now that it really is not appropriate.
Now, although they told you no with this, where do you go from this? Does it get to the point where when I go to the polls, there's going to be an issue, save it or not save it? Do I want to spend $8 million of the city's budget towards reviving that? Will it come to that?
Well, according to our code, this written documentation that they have to provide has to go back to the city and be delivered to us by October 4th. On October 5th, or 7th, I'm sorry, we will be meeting with the Architectural Review Board for a period of negotiation. And we will discuss with them if there's any other options for the building. Maybe they eventually grant it that it is appropriate to demo it, but could you save, you know, the archway, or could you save the cornerstone, something like that. So that's what we'll be talking about. That period could go on for quite a long time. We have to meet every 45 days. For up to 6 months, I believe it is. So,
but isn't that another piece of the Community Improvement Corporation? That's another part of the area outside of the square that they would be considering?
Yes.
That you're kind of holding that back by prolonging what's going to happen with that building.
Well, that building really is a linchpin in the redevelopment for the entire downtown area.
I would think so.
And it sits right in the middle of a 5-acre property. If it were closer up to the street, it might be able to be incorporated into something, but it's sitting on a very valuable piece of property right now.
All right, so I guess next month you'll have met with the ARB once again and heard them out and see if they got you this list or this historical thing they need to get you, and we'll talk about it then because I don't want to spend Okay, good. So quickly, let's get finished with some good news. New companies coming into town, you were telling me?
Oh, yeah, we have quite a few new companies. In fact, I just went to a grand opening last week, Watts Water Quality. They're located on East Aurora Road.
Okay.
And this is a big international company. In fact, it started in a long time ago. It was like 1874 that it first came into existence. And they have solutions, water quality for residential, commercial, industrial, municipal. Great company. So we're thrilled to have them here.
It sounds unique too.
It is. It's really a very fascinating business.
Okay.
And then Infinite Wireless, they are just opening up, and that's on Church Street. They're a mobile phone retailer. Small business, but we're very, very happy to have them here. Progressive Plastics is coming in on Edison Boulevard. 8 employees right now, but looking at having approximately 14. So another nice business.
Yeah, you chip away. It's always.
We are, absolutely.
One of your companies had some big increase in something, or not?
Yes, that was Envision RX Options, and they had a 288% 3-year sales growth. So Inc. magazine ranked them in their top 10 of large companies, and they were number 9. So congratulations to them. We're very excited that they're in the city.
Okay, we're not going to get to everything, but I need to get this because it's huge every year. Your Safety Forces Open House, and there's going to be a clam bake the day after. Tell us about that.
Wednesday, October 9th, 5:30 to 8 o'clock. Safety Forces Open House takes place at the Fire Department, Police Department.
That's where all the kids come up.
Big family event. Kids love it.
And the clam bake?
Clam bake is the next day, Thursday, October 10th, on the square. It's hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. We have lots of sponsors. I'd like to mention them all, but we don't have time.
Yeah.
Again, 5 o'clock. You can order your bakes, pick them up, or I'm sure there'll be some tents set up and have it right there. It was absolutely delicious last year. Hope you can join us for that.
All right.
And the rabies. Oh, we don't know.
You can do the rabies.
Okay, we have one more. Rabies vaccination clinic for dogs and cats. Did this last year. Had a tremendous turnout. This is going to be on. Great. Now I can't find the date. It's on October 5th. Saturday, October 5th, right away. Cats, dogs,
I remember
$8.
They were happy with the turnout last year.
We were pleased, yes.
All right. We're out of time. We'll see you next month.